Okay, so today we are learning about midpoint and distance in the coordinate plane. And I forgot, I actually wanted you to leave your Chromebook open. That's okay, I'm going to show you where to go. So I think I showed you this earlier where you can go to see our TI calculator. Remember that there's a link to your calculator on the home page that stays on the home page. So here, if you don't have the calculator that you're allowed to use on the end-of-course exam at home, you can always just go to the home page in Canvas, click on that, and you can use it just like a handheld calculator, okay? Another thing I wanted to show you, and it's not on this week yet, I put it too late, but it's not here, I'll move it back. There's also a reference sheet, so if you remember when you took the end-of-course exam, you got to use a reference sheet, and there's a sheet that gives you certain formulas. And you have the same thing on the end-of-course exam for geometry. So I've added this reference sheet to your home page where you'll always be able to go and find it easily, right there with the calculator. Okay? Once again, it's not in this week, but I'll put it in this week this afternoon. When I enter in that program, it starts there. So I entered it when I was planning for this week. And I should have put back at the beginning. So I'll fix that. If not, you can just go fast forward to the next week. But I'm going to fix it. And I show you this because we're going to start working with the first two formulas that are on here. So we're going to put these in our notes. So we're going to learn how to use the distance formula to find the length of a segment on the coordinate plane. And then we're going to learn how to use the midpoint formula to find the actual coordinates of a midpoint of a segment on the coordinate plane. And those can get confusing to try to keep separate and keep organized in your mind. But the good news is, on the end-of-course exam in particular, you get to use your reference sheet. And I will let you use your reference sheet, or I'll post those formulas on your test. I won't label them on our test. I'm not going to label them distance formula and midpoint formula. You're going to have to know which is which. But you'll have them there if you don't. I'd like you to know them for the test, but at least you can confirm them here. Does that make sense with everyone? Okay. So anytime you need the reference sheet or formulas, you can come here to the home page, and anytime you need the calculator, you can come to that link on the home page too. And we're gonna I'm gonna actually use that today in class. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and get started. Midpoint and distance in the coordinate plane. What's a coordinate plane? You know, Miles, what's a coordinate plane? Yep, it's where the two lines intersect and there's two axes. Which axes are they? What are they labeled? Elizabeth said X and Y. Yes, X and Y. So this is a picture of the coordinate plane, right? Where this is X and this is Y. When we're using ordered pairs in the coordinate plane, everything is based off of the location in relation to the origin. What is the origin of a coordinate plane? Xavier? The center, yeah. What is it? Yes. Xavier said center, Thomas said 0, 0. This point here, where the two X and Y axes intersect, that's the origin. Let's make yourself a little negative here. So the origin is at 0, 0. And when we use ordered pairs, we need to remember they need to be in the format of an X coordinate, Y coordinate. Ordered pairs need to have parentheses, and they have to be separated by a comma. X coordinate has to be first, and Y coordinate has to be second. So looking at this line segment on this coordinate plane, R, the point on the coordinate plane, its X coordinate is 3, and its Y coordinate is 4. The way we get that ordered pair is we start at the origin. X always goes left and right, just like the x-axis. The y always tells us how far to go up and down, just like the y-axis. So if we look at this ordered pair, 3, positive 3, we start at the origin, positive to the right, negative to the left. You want to remind yourself positive and negative. So if we start at origin, right 3, and up 4, that is the coordinate to point R. So if we just have that point plotted a point is just a location. We put a dot on it to mark that location. If you don't have your AirPods, headphones, earbuds all put away, let's go and put those away now. So for point W, we always start at the origin. Origin means beginning, right? And X is first and Y. So to get to this point, the location of this point is -4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and -2, down 2. So positive is up on the y-axis, negative is down on the y-axis. So it would be pretty easy, and this is one thing you don't have to write. Normally I have you guys write everything, but real quick, if I wanted to measure the length of that segment, I just use my little tick marks and count, right? If I wanted to measure the length of this segment, it'd be pretty easy. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, right? Pretty easy. But what if you can't count them like that? If it's diagonal or cattywampus, it's a much better word than diagonal. This means diagonal. You can't count them straight like that because they go diagonally through these marks. So we can use a distance formula to measure the length of segments on a coordinate plane. Where you can't measure lines because they're infinite, but we think of them as lines. There's a line that goes through this segment. But right now, we want to measure the length of this line. To define the distance on a coordinate plane, we use the distance formula. I'm going to write that in. The distance on the coordinate plane equals the square root, open your parentheses, and x sub 2, that's just the label, minus x sub 1, close your parentheses and square it. Carolyn, you writing this? Plus, basically the difference in the x squared plus the difference of the y squared. So then it's plus y2 minus y1, all squared. And then you just take the square root. So we're going to practice doing this on our CAD centers first. We're going to plug into the formula. So there's only really two things I need you to do on these kind of things, on these problems. I need you to make sure you're plugging in the x and y coordinates into the formula. And then you can just use your calculator to simplify it. And I'll show you how to do that. So, example 1 says we're going to find the length of RW. So remember, if it doesn't have a line up there, that means length. So let's go ahead and add that to our notes to remind us. It doesn't say if there were a line up there, it would have to tell us something to do with segment RW. But if there's no line off of it, we have to know that we're finding the length of RW. So we're going to start by plugging what is here into our formula. So let's mark x and y here. You've already marked x and y there. This symbol is a radical. This particular radical is a square root symbol that allows us to find what number multiplied by itself will equal this number right here. So we are going to plug in left parentheses. It does not matter which one you do first, second or first, which one you call 2 or 1. If you'll notice, if the 2 is the first one here, then the y2 has to be the first one there. X1 here has to be in the same spot for y1. That's all that is, just making sure we match them up in those spots. It will make a difference to your answer. Okay, so the x, since it said find RW, I'm going to use the R coordinate first. I'm going to do 3 minus the x coordinate of W, -4, all squared, plus. Now open our parentheses. The y from point R would be 4, minus the y from point W would be -2, you can. If you want to simplify in there yourself, how much you can, your calculator will do it for you. So that's what we're going to do. Yeah. So if you did not use your calculator, you need to get up and get it. Everyone have your calculator? Darren, you got yours? Nadine, you got yours? Yeah. There you go. I'm trying to get it where I can be. Okay. So I'm always clearing my calculator out 3 times. Now here's the trick. If you're listening, don't do the last one, the square root until last. All right, that is your last. Do everything inside here first, and then the square root last. So the square root is going to be the square root of x. And when we square with the square root of x, we'll do that one last. When we square over here, we're going to use the x squared last. So what we're going to put on the calculator is this. That's what you see. 3 minus -4, so 3 minus, and remember, -4 is 4, and then that plus minus button. And then our x squared button. So 3 minus 4, negative button. Actually, give me equals first. Equals, then the x squared button. Then we're going to do plus, and then we'll do our y. Plus, left parentheses, 4 minus 2, positive negative button, equals, and then x squared. Left parentheses, 4 minus 2, negative button, close the parentheses, squared, and then equal. Now, the square root of x button. So, the length of this segment is 9.219544457. It goes on forever and ever. We're going to round. If they don't tell us what to round to, we're going to round to the hundredths place. So we're going to look at the hundredths place, which is second place to the right of the decimal point. We look at this number. If this number is 5 or greater, then that 1 goes up. If this number is less than 5, then that number stays 1, and we drop everything else off. So we're going to round this, so the distance is going to round to 9.22. Does that make sense? Okay. So you guys, we'll do the next one. You guys can put that one in the calculator. And we won't write all the steps for that. So the next one we're going to find is the length of xy. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to plug in the formula. So remember, what is x and what is y? And I think it's a good idea for you to label your x and y just until you get, you've done a couple at least. Have to show me what is going into the formula in order to get credit for the problem. So you have to plug in x minus x to -4 minus 2, close the parentheses and square it, plus to go in this set of parentheses. The y. So what am I going to write, Thomas? Yes. And then square. So that is what we plugged into the formula. Now we're going to clear your calculator out 3 times, and we'll enter in our calculator. So we're going to do everything under the square root first, and then the square root last. So make sure you clear your calculator 3 times. Use your parentheses button. 4 negative minus 2. Close out parentheses. Not the negative buttons, right? So real quick, do it again. Negative 4 is 4 negative minus 2. Negative 4 is 4 negative with a calculator minus 2. Close our parentheses. Now we have to square it with the x squared button. Plus, left parentheses, 1 minus 0, close our parentheses, square it, and equal. We have 37. Is 37 our answer? What do we have to do now? We have to take the square root. So the distance of segment, the length of segment XY is 6 points. Is it 08 or 09? Right. So we're looking at this. This is 100 place. That number is less than 5, so we keep it at an 8 and drop everything else off. Any questions on how to find the distance of a segment on a coordinate plane? Charlie, you good? Are y'all proud of me? The other formula we're going to learn to use is the midpoint on a coordinate plane. So when we find the midpoint, we're not finding the length. We're actually finding an ordered pair. We're finding the x-coordinates and the y-coordinates of the point that is the midpoint on a segment. What does it mean to be a midpoint? The halfway in between. So more specifically, what does halfway or in between mean? Middle? What does the middle mean? It specifically. What does it mean to be in the middle? Figure? The equal distance from that midpoint, right? So this point, the distance from N to R, has to be the same as the distance from N to W. We're not finding the distance here, but this is a recap. We need to make sure we're reviewing our vocabulary. So, and our answer needs to be an ordered pair. If we're finding the midpoint, our answer has to be an ordered pair. This is the formula. M for endpoint. And the coordinates of endpoint are going to be x sub m, where m stands for midpoint. So the x coordinate of the midpoint, comma, the y coordinate of the midpoint. That's what we're finding with this formula. This formula, we're going to kind of separate pieces from. So, in order to form, you'll see there's a comma there. So this whole thing, there are 2 separate little formulas in here. This first part here is the formula for the coordinate of the x-coordinate of the midpoint. This part here is the formula for the y-coordinate of the midpoint. So we're going to work those separately. I'll show you what I mean by that. So they have the midpoint marked, but you'll notice it's in the these lines here, right? It is pretty close to here. Maybe not exact, we're not sure. But we can find the exact midpoint since we know the endpoint using this formula. So to do that, we're going to start with, we're going to find the x-coordinate first. Okay? X-coordinate of the midpoint. X plus x. Let's go ahead and mark them. X and y, x and y. Always divided by 2. So the x plus the x. It doesn't work great on your calculator for turning it into a fraction. I thought you could just plug it in like that and use the ABC button, but it doesn't work great for that. So we'll simplify the top, and you can use your calculator for that. That will be -1, and the denominator stays the same. So now we know what the x-coordinate is of the midpoint. It's -1/2. So you can see starting from the origin, that must be 1/2. Now we're going to use the formula for the y-coordinate of the midpoint. So now it's just adding the y and divided by 2. Finding the average of the y. The average of the y is found by y plus y, -2 plus 4, all divided by 2. Again, -2 plus 4 divided by 2. 2 divided by 2, which is 1. So this is not my answer. My answer needs to be in an order pair form. The midpoint of the segment has an x-coordinate of -1/2 and a y-coordinate of 1. Any questions on that? Here? -1 at the top. So it's -1/2. But we're going to use the fraction form unless there's a decimal in it. Okay? Yeah. You have to put equal. Yep. Either that or you can use perfect symbols. That's another way to do it. You put the piece in the top, divide by 2, get equals, and then we can use the fraction method. If someone wants to do that, then I can show you. I can do that real quick now. So if you're a little uncomfortable with the fraction button on your calculator, as long as you know how to work it, and honestly, I messed it up in the second period today because I was trying to use ABC buttons too early. But if we do, what was our -4 plus 3? 4 plus 3. -4 plus 3. Close that parentheses. Divide by 2 equals, it's going to give us a decimal. Now we're second ABC. Second. Oh no, it's a fraction decimal one here. Second fraction of decimal, and then it takes us to -1/2. So I don't use this calculator all the time. When I teach, I use 2 calculators, 3 to count decimal segments. So at the beginning of the year, I'm always going back to make sure I know which button to use too. So that is why we practice using this calculator all year long. So the calculator is helpful, not harmful to you when you take GOC. So you'll have any questions about what you can and can't do with that calculator and how to do it. All right, so let's find the midpoint of another segment. So remember, it's going to have to be, we're looking for the midpoint here, or one ordered pair. going to do? We're going to add our x's, -1 plus 6. We're going to write, I do need to see this in your book for now, -1 plus 6 all over 2. And we can simplify that. -1 plus 6 is 5. And over 2, or 5 halves. So now that is the x-coordinate of our midpoint. So like everything seems like it's a lot when we're explaining every little minute detail how to do it. But when you're actually doing it, it's not as much. Our kids tell me, that's too much. And it does seem like too much sometimes the first time we're going through it. But once you get a little practice at it, it always goes quicker. So now the y-coordinate of the midpoint, what's going to go in the numerator with the y-coordinate of our midpoint? Dallas? Okay. So let's look right here. The y-coordinate of your midpoint is right here. Y plus y divided by 2. Is 6 one of the y-coordinates? No. So what's going to go on the top? What's the y-coordinate for D? Yes. Well, what's the y-coordinate for P? 1. And it's always over 2. The y-coordinate for the midpoint is 3 halves. So this ordered pair is the midpoint between point B and point E. Not on any of the little hash marks that would be hard to find without this formula. Any questions? So remember that formulas don't ever work only one way. So a formula with multiple variables in it can be used to find, in this case, can be used to find an x or y coordinate of the midpoint. But if we know, let's go back here. So this formula here, x plus x divided by 2, 2x coordinates equals the midpoint. We really have 1, 2, 3 variables we're looking at here. We can solve using any formula for each of the variables, right? So if we know the midpoint, or if we know the x and y coordinates, we can find the midpoint. But if we know one of the endpoints and the midpoint, we can also find the other endpoint. And that's what we're going to do for the formula now. So we're going to find the missing endpoint given that B is the midpoint. So I think the best thing to do here is to draw a line first so you know what the heck we're talking about here. You always just draw it in math, you should draw pictures. In geometry, it's almost necessary. It's almost vital. It'll make your life a lot easier. Draw a picture of this line. This segment. This segment is AC. So let's label it AC. They tell us that point B is midpoint. So we know that point B is in the middle. And let's go ahead and mark it. Mark this through it. So we've made it a very accurate sketch for the segment. We said that AB is congruent to BC. That's how we know that B is a midpoint here. Now let's label the stuff that they gave us. We know the order pair for A. So let's put that there. We know the order pair for the midpoint. So let's label it. And then one is defined by missing endpoint. So the one that we don't know is C. So that is we need an x coordinate and a y coordinate. So we have an unknown x coordinate there and an unknown y coordinate. Okay? So we can use this formula since we know the midpoint coordinate to find that point, and that's what we're going to do first. Now we're going to do them one coordinate at a time. I'm going to write this whole little formula for you. So the x coordinate of the midpoint midpoint, remember, equals the x's divided by 2. That's the same formula we used earlier. This time, though, we don't know both of the x's. We don't know this x. But we know the x-coordinate of the midpoint here. So this is the x-coordinate of the midpoint. So that's going to go here. Does that make sense? Does that make sense, Darren? Does that make sense, Tori? And now the x's. The x we do know. Did I mess up? Did anybody notice I messed up? So this is the x-coordinate of the midpoint. This is just the x-coordinate, like that. My bad. It's negative 2. X-coordinate of the midpoint equals, now we know this x, we don't know that one, so it's just 2 plus x over 2. So this is the x-coordinate of the midpoint, and this is the midpoint. So negative 2 equals our x plus our unknown x. So now we always just multiply both sides by 2 to solve from here. So it's negative 4 equals 2 plus x. So we're going to subtract 2 from both sides. And so our new x-coordinate we don't know, is negative 6. Negative 4 times minus 2 is negative 6. X equals negative 6. So this x-coordinate is negative 6. So we have half of our answer now. The question, Charlie's restricted. Okay. And we're going to do the same thing for our y-coordinate. So y-coordinate of our midpoint equals our y, all divided by 2. So the y-coordinate of our midpoint is right here. I'm running out of room, so I'm going to squeeze it right here. So 2 equals the y, now this is the y, 8 plus the y we don't know, divided by 2. Does that make sense, Amaria? Does that make sense, Daria? So now we're just going to multiply both sides by 2. Do the same thing every time to get rid of that fraction. So now we have 4 equals 8 plus y. Then subtract 8 from both sides to solve for y. And now we know that y equals negative 4. So negative 4 is the y-coordinate. So what we're boxing here, that is a missing endpoint. When you name a point, you have to give order and order pair that tells the location of that point. Any questions on that one? All right, we have one more. So let's draw the picture. You guys see if you can draw the picture without me. Go ahead and draw the line and label it with all the given information. They tell us it's segment AC. They tell us again that the midpoint is B. It is nice to have as much information as possible so that I can answer that. You see? Label point A as negative 5, 7. It's label point B as negative 2, 1. And we're going to label our missing endpoint with an x and a y. So that's what we're going to be using in the formula. The x and the y. So we should start with this picture. Label our formula. So let's find x coordinate and missing endpoint first. So what am I going to plug in instead of x of m? Vivian? Yeah, so this is x of m, right? So negative 2 goes 0. So what am I going to plug in the top here? Diane, what am I going to plug in the top? Say again? Well, one is a y, right? So we want an x. So this is an x, it's a different color. This is an x. This is an x, which we already used, right? And then we have that x. So we've got to use not the 1, right? The 1. Right? So the x's go on top. X is in negative 5 is an x, and then for the other endpoint, x. We already used this x over here. So the endpoint x's go on the right, the midpoint x goes on the left. Multiply everything by 2. And solve for x. So x equals 1. So here, x coordinate of point C is 1. And we're going to do the same thing with the y coordinate. The y coordinate of the midpoint is equal to the sum of the y's, or y2 plus y1 all over 2. And we can plug in based on what we labeled. Remember, this is a y, this is a y, this is a y. So what am I going to plug in for y sub m, Helen? What does the m stand for? What does the m stand for? Midpoint, right? So this is the y of the midpoint. Which one is the midpoint, Helen? Yes. So the y for the midpoint is 1. So what do you think we're going to put in the top? Here, what are we going to put in the top here? 7 plus x. Perfect. And 2 is always in the denominator. Yes. Oh, yes, 7 plus y, yes. There was so confident, because I went on with the guess. We're doing y. 7 plus y, all over 2. So multiply both sides by 2. Then 2 equals 7 plus y. We're going to subtract 7 from both sides. And so y equals negative 12. If we plug our two endpoints in, we can check to make sure we get it right. Especially on a test, that would be a good skill to have. Use this new endpoint and the given endpoint, plug it into the formula, and you can see if you get your endpoints right. So when you use these two endpoints with the midpoint formula, you should get the coordinate. And this is the answer to that problem. The missing endpoint is C, and those are the coordinates for C on the coordinate plane. Any questions? If you got all your notes filled in, you don't need me to go back anywhere. You can go ahead and scan and make your notes on Canvas. You can use your phone to do that right now, or your Chromebook.